What we have prepared for you today is selling into enterprise as an IT consultant. We're going to have this as a panel discussion. So we have a couple of slides that we have prepared for you just to set the pace for the conversation. But we also going to let you guys ask any questions that you have. You can already pause them in the chat. We're going to start picking on the questions shortly through and after the presentation. We're going to have a couple of speakers today talking from different departments. Just a quick introduction. We are a business development company. We're a consulting company helping with business development for IT consulting companies. We are originally started in Germany, and now we have a team in Germany, in entire Europe, in the US, and in Dubai. Our clients book meetings and work with enterprise, with big market players, as you can see here on the screen. And our consulting team mainly comes from IT industry. We have team members formerly working in sales departments of Google, PwC, as well as for a more consulting approach, SAP, Microsoft, etc. Today on the panel, we have me from AceMakers. My name is Matt, and I'm in Phoenix, and I mainly focus on positioning, figuring out different target market niches, moving you to blue ocean from red ocean. Then we have Eric from Poland, who's a head of lead generation with AceMakers. We have Fabian Estrich. He is right now in Dubai. He's head of operations and systems, formerly from Google. And we have Jake Uhlenkot tuning in from San Juan in Puerto Rico today, head of sales. Just to give you context, just so you understand types of companies we work with and who is it for, just to make sure that we're efficient here. Those are types of companies we work with. Those are types of companies that we have experience with. So if that does not fit your description, there is not that much we know about other types of companies. We specialize in IT consulting. So companies that we work with are ERP consulting companies or CRM consulting companies, a lot of SAP consulting companies, Microsoft Dynamics 365, or CRMs like Salesforce consultants. We also work with a lot of MSPs, managed service providers. We also work with business like BI and data analytics companies who do Power BI, Tableau, Cloud, DevOps, AWS, containers, Azure. Also, IT recruiters and industry-specific process optimization. They all really have the same challenge when we work with them, whether we work with them. And today's presentation is to share with you how we do that, just to spill the beans. This is to show you how we do that. So when we work with them, whether this is a done-for-you service or whether this is consulting, which we mainly do, they pretty much all have the same challenge that they're facing, which is how to get clients outside of network, how to get those enterprise clients. And there is tons of confusion around this. So we try to structure it, and we turn this process into a framework that we encourage each of our clients to follow and to think of it in a sequential way, where you go from step 1 to step 5 as if you were just graduating from one stage to another. So you are at the stage 1, then you're hitting a constraint, and then you think about the next stage. So the situation is different when you have clients from inside your network. I'm sure a lot of you, and that's most of our clients, they build their IT consulting company and they get clients because they used to work in the enterprise before. And they pull those clients back from the enterprise days, or they pull clients from their network. But when they start going out there, they start realizing that, hey, it's a bit hard to just go out there and have something generic and start having those new potential clients booking calls with us. So this is when this framework is applicable. And today we're going to talk about those elements. So we first start with positioning. This is really the heart of your entire operation. This is really the differentiation that you have on the market. Then we're going to talk about lead generation, which is how do you get people to book meetings with you? Where do you find them? How do you do that? Then we're going to talk about the sales part. How do you actually sell to them? We're going to talk about the systems. How can you systemize it so you can measure and track everything to identify what works and doesn't work? And then your piece is the delivery piece. So we're not going to talk about delivery. This is what you do. Typically, clients kind of change a little bit what they do based on the market demand and the positioning, but we're going to have me going into the positioning part. Then we're going to have Eric, head of lead gen, talking about the lead generation part. We're going to have Jake, head of sales, talking about the sales part. And then we're going to have Fabian, head of systems operations, talking about systems. Your chunk here is the delivery part. So let me talk about the confusion that a lot of people have. Pretty much everyone we talk with, when you research information, when you look into some data sources like McKinsey or Gartner, feel free to email me later if you want those sources. That is from their reports. All of those talk about the following, and those are very similar across Gartner, across McKinsey. The numbers vary a little bit. Some of them tell you it's 76%, some of them tell you it's 81%, but it's more or less 80% of B2B buying decisions are happening outside of the meetings, which means that it's not happening on the sales call or the sales meeting that you have with them. 80% of B2B buyers prefer to make a decision outside of the meeting as well. So it's not that it happens outside of the meeting. They do have the preference. And at the same time, self-service digital purchases are far more likely to result in purchase regret. So if they're not going to talk to you guys or not going to talk to your sales reps, they will likely have buyer's remorse at the same time. So those are two opposing ideas. And then to add to that, if they are not exposed to you in any way, they're unlikely to consider you at all. So it's super confusing to everyone because everyone is thinking, so what do I do? Do I try to start messaging people, getting them on calls, or do I just let them kind of find me somewhere? So what do I do with this information from our clients and from Gartner, from McKinsey, and so on? So to add to that, I also want to talk about what does it take to close. So this is data from over 1.5 million companies, from contacts from over 150 B2B companies. This data is from Hockey Stack. It's a SaaS backed by Y Combinator. They just have a lot of data. They just measure a lot of data. I was at the meeting with them and LinkedIn in LA a couple of weeks ago, and that's actually the data they're publishing. You can also research that on their website, or you can ask me for references later. But essentially, it takes 71 touch points to convert somebody from first impression to MQL, marketing qualified lead, and 894 impressions. Just to clarify the difference between touch points and impression, just for the verbiage, just for everyone to understand, touch point is a little bit more active. Maybe they download something, they open something, they talk to you. Impressions, just something showing on their feed. Then you want to convert this MQL into SQL, which is sales qualified leads. It's another 96 touch points and over 1,000 impressions. And to get them closed, it's 99 touch points and almost 1,000 impressions. Now, those numbers vary a little bit. The smaller ACV, the smaller average contract value for you, the lower those numbers are going to be. So if you have something cheaper, something smaller versus a multi-million-dollar contract, it's obviously going to be less, but it's also not linear. It's surprisingly not that much more for very big high-ticket contracts. But anyways, this is what needs to be done. And what we have found, what a lot of those companies have found is, and really the difference between clients that we work with who do get results with getting enterprise clients versus not, is that they do underestimate the amount of touch points that you need to create through that process. And everybody massively underestimates the magnitude of how many touch points do you actually need in the process. So they think that, and that's what we used to think, that, hey, I can only get clients through my network, or I can go and start sending cold emails and LinkedIn messages and hoping that I'm gonna get clients that way. But then, oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there are so many more touch points. The sales pipeline is so long that yes, it does, but you just need to really extend it. You just need to do a lot of it, and you can do it in a digital way. But it's just much more the new thing. The most common touch points are your website, LinkedIn, and Google for B2B buyers. What it means is you really want to get those Google reviews from your clients. You want to ask everyone. They do Google you almost every single time. We know that all our clients Google us almost every single time because we check that. So those are the most common ones. And what does it look like in practice? And now I know that this slide is confusing. Anybody I'm showing this slide to, they're like, okay, so that is very, very confusing. So what do we have here? This one's for Gartner. You can look it up on their website as well. This is a linear sales process or representation of a linear sales process. You can show it in this way. You can describe it in a different way. You can talk about the setter call, closer call, decision call, or name those calls however you want. You can break this down into awareness stages as this is broken down in here: problem identification, solution exploration, etc. But in general, the process is not linear. You're going to have a lot of micro steps that are happening in between of the process. So this is really what this looks like in the practical scenario before they make a purchasing decision. And because this is extremely confusing to anyone when they're looking at this, I just had a little metaphor, an example of what this looks like. So think of it just practically. If you're thinking, for example, of LinkedIn first-degree connections, think about it that way. Imagine you're fishing your fishes and putting them into a bowl in your house, and think about it as those are your example first-degree connections on LinkedIn. You're essentially fishing, and you're adding them into your network. Maybe you're sending them messages. Maybe you're pitching something, and then you're not getting any reply. 90%, 99% of time, you probably are not getting any reply. You get a very small conversion on that. But it doesn't matter, because what matters is that you keep adding as many of them into that little aquarium that you have, and then you keep feeding them with that information. So the information is what I'm showing you here. Those are some examples here. Those can be, all the content from you, all the lead magnets, all those things that add up again to 71 touch points on average from first impression to MQL, 96 touch points from MQL to SQL, 99 from SQL to closed. So how do you even start? We're going to be very, very pragmatic today, so we're going to show you exactly how we do that step by step, so you can walk away from this presentation, from this panel discussion later with something you can actually implement by yourself. So we start with step one, which is positioning, and you cannot really do anything before you get started with positioning. So how do we go about that? We first go over ICP of clients. This is what you typically want to do first. What is your ideal client profile? And this is the biggest challenge that people have, because they are oftentimes just offering something generic. So they don't realize how much you need to differentiate yourself in order to be unique on the market. So ICP is essentially the type of companies that you work with. And if we have examples of MSPs that we work with, for example, a generic MSP in the US will have very hard time competing versus an MSP that is focusing on assisted living and it's also adding some extra value working with low voltage, or an MSP that is focusing on medical devices and it's in Bay Area where they have a lot of those companies and startups. So that really has to be well engineered so you're competitive. Then we establish buyer personas. And here it's an important concept of, and this is really applicable to enterprise sales. What a lot of people are not thinking about, especially when they're starting out, is the concept of multi-threading in sales. So you're not going to be targeting this one person on LinkedIn, the CEO of Apple. You're not going to do that. It's unlikely going to work. What you want to do is you want to establish different buyer personas in the company. Those could be, for example, end users. Those could be decision influencers. Those could be spark buyers. And you want to get their alignment before they're going to be pushing it to somebody like the CTO. Otherwise, it's very unlikely for you to message them and get a reply from them. So this is what you do second. Then you go and create problem solution fit, which is what is that you do? You go over unique selling points and you go over offer formulation framework. So what that looks like in practice, it looks like that. You go over something like that with your team and you really dig deep and deep dive and you establish where they are, what's their industry and sector, what is their business model, how can you significantly help them with making more money, how many employees do they have? That's ICP, right? What's their annual revenue and unit economics? What's their technology stack? What are vendors that they work with, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go into buyer persona and then you break it down. So if it's not written down, if your marketing team, if your sales team, if they don't know that, then they will have no idea what to do and everyone's going to be confused. So you want to go through that. By the way, I'll be sharing this at the end of the call for everyone staying here. I'll be sharing this document as well and a few other goodies so you can walk away and have something applicable by yourself. I will just move ahead now and I will talk about the lead generation part. So now that you understand the positioning part, we do have the lead generation part. So I'm going to pull Eric in here. He's going to talk about pragmatic examples on how this can work from the operational perspective for you and your team. So Eric, I want to let you take it from here.
Sure, guys. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen, Matt?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So my name is Eric and I look after lead generation in AceMakers, which is a very, very important part of the process, which we focus normally as a second step, like Matt said. So the lead generation that we normally focus on is LinkedIn lead generation and cold email lead generation. First, let me tell you maybe how the LinkedIn lead generation is done and what is the process, what we do step by step with our clients, but it's applicable, of course, for everyone who wants to do the outreach through LinkedIn. So the very first thing we have to do is, of course, the setup of the outreach. We start with reviewing and updating the LinkedIn profile. I will show you in a second on Matt's profile how it's done and what are the things we focus on mostly. Obviously, we book Sales Navigator because this is our main tool for the outreach. Plus, we turn it into like a small CRM to manage the leads, to make sure that we know how to follow up, who to follow up with, and so on. Obviously, we have a tracking sheet that I will show you in a second as well, because I always say that when we talk about LinkedIn lead generation or any lead generation, of course, there is a part which is how we approach people, how the messages look like, but also the part where you track your results is very, very important, especially if you do it with a high volume, because it's very easy to get lost in all the numbers and it's very easy to get a feeling that something goes good or it goes wrong, and that's why you have a tracking sheet to see if what is the actual result. Crafting LinkedIn message sequence, this is something we also help with, and it obviously depends on the strategy, depends on the target audience and many other things. And of course, we help you with setting up the Sales Navigator search to find the audience. Sometimes the search is very small because you have a super big niche that there are only a few hundred people. Then the strategy, how to approach those leads is different than if you do like a mass outreach and you contact as many people as possible. So when the setup is done and you are ready for the outreach, of course, you have the execution. The execution is sending the connection request to people. There are limits inside LinkedIn. Basically, we never know what is the right number, but from our expertise, contacting 100 new prospects per week, it's fine, and it's like a safe limit that you are not going to get blocked by LinkedIn for spamming or anything like this. Of course, tracking every activity, as I told you, is very, very important, and updating the status of the outreach also every day. Then what we do, we of course optimize what works, what doesn't work, and that's why the tracking part is very important. So let me show this in practice, how it looks. So first, we always set everything up in Asana, and we have the same tasks like I described seconds ago: update your profile, the LinkedIn tracking sheet, and so on and so on. So let's first go to profile. So this is Matt's profile and what we normally focus on. LinkedIn profile, it shouldn't be like, it shouldn't tell a story about you. It should tell more about the story about your services and what you offer. And it should be more focused on your offer than yourself. So what is important? Obviously, professional photo, a background photo, which is branded with your company. Also, this part is important, which is a slogan. Here, a lot of people would just put as a CEO of something. We also want to say in the slogan what we actually do, what we focus on, what is our specialty. Obviously, you have an about section. That's the same thing. It's not a CV of yourself. It's a CV of your services, and that's how it should work. Obviously, the experience, and one thing people very often miss is also the description of the company in the experience. Because if somebody checks your profile and sees that you are a co-founder of AceMakers, this person doesn't know what is AceMakers, but then you can give this information just here in the description, and it's very important. Another part which you should focus on is getting as many recommendations as possible. It really builds trust, and in the end, it's cold outreach. So you are contacting people who never heard about you, and it's kind of like a proof that you are a real person, and they can work with you, and they can trust you. I told you also about the search, that we set up the search. So this is a typical search that I use from my profile. I target Central Eastern Europe, IT consulting. So this is also something we go through, and we help you to identify those people who are here. And obviously, we help you also how to manage those leads and make sure that you know how to follow up with them, and you remember to follow up with them. About the tracking, guys. So here I can show you a tracking sheet that we used for Matt's account this year. A lot of numbers here, but what is important, of course, is this part here in the middle. So you can see how many invites in total we sent per month. This is, of course, this month, for example. How many invites per day on average? What is the acceptance rate? What is the response rate? How many calls we booked? What is the conversion rate in the end of the calls? So this is also breaking. You can see it like per week. And this is what I meant by saying that tracking is important, because very often you do the outreach, you don't get many response. Like a lot of people accept your connect request, a lot of people enter your network, then you reach out to them, you send the messages, but they stop responding. They don't respond, right? So you change the message, and from some point you see that the response rate goes up, but you can track it down through the tracking sheet, and you can see when the change happened and if it worked or if it didn't work. So it's super helpful. So that's how it works in terms of LinkedIn. We of course also look after cold email outreach, which is a little bit different than LinkedIn, but of course we help you with the whole process. So what we do normally is we would get the domains, because you should never use your main domain for cold emailing. It has to be something else. Like if you use a domain ending up with com, you should use another one ending up with net or whatever. Of course, setting up the emails for the domain, preparing all the DNS protocols, so you make sure your deliverability is there and the emails are ending in inboxes, not in spam folder. And of course, later adding the emails and the domains to Instantly. Instantly is the tool that we use for cold emailing. So after the technical setup with the domains, it's done. What we do, of course, we identify the right leads. The tool we use to get the leads, it's Apollo. Then we help you to get leads. We help you to clear the leads, the lead list. That's also very important, because a lot of lead lists you get later, half of the leads are not good leads. The email addresses are not valid, and it can really affect the whole outreach. And in the end, of course, we the same thing we do. We do the same thing as we did with LinkedIn. So we craft messages, we set up the strategy. Also, sometimes it's about recording videos that we send to people. It really depends on a company, on the approach we want to take. So yeah, with both channels, cold email and LinkedIn, the goal is obviously to get as many calls as possible. And then when people get on calls, we go to the next part, which is sales. So I'll just let Jake explain this part.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Let me share my screen here on the sales. Once Eric and the whole team have done all their work, then they come into the sales process. My name is Jake. I help here at AceMakers to guide our prospect through the entire process. The sales process it's highly customizable, but it also follows. It's a great mix of art and science in your approach, but also making things very specific to your company. So generally, what you want to invite a prospect into is a structured sales process that has at least some sort of a clear end goal. Now, in enterprise sales, typically you're going to be dealing with longer sales cycles. This process can take place over 3, 6 months, sometimes even year-long sales cycles in enterprise. But you still want to be following the ultimate fundamentals of guiding your prospects and the multiple personalities and buyer personas within your ideal client profile or company. You want to be guiding them through a process that's defined. You want to have your collaterals in place to always be sharing collaterals, whether it's decks, proposals, you name it, along that whole process, so that you are truly coming across as a well-oiled machine. So what does this look like? Well, generally, it is a. Oh, my apologies. I'll go back up here. So it's generally about a six or so step process. It can be as short as 3, depending on how large your contract values are. But the first piece is what we call a setter call or triage. This could also be, if you're doing in enterprise, you're going to be doing a lot of mix of digital with what Eric is doing and lead gen that way. But in enterprise, you're also going to likely have a strong event or other methodologies as well for bringing in leads. So a setter call could also be some of the conversations that you're having at an event or a trade show with different prospects. So the goal there is really just to understand the prospect of needs, pain points, kind of see if there's a fit here for you to work together and analyze rapport and qualify the prospect. When that setter call is done, then you can start moving into more of an actual sales consulting call, an actual deep dive into how can we actually work together. What are let's get into the real bread and butter here. A lot of times when you're dealing with enterprise, there is going to be an NDA somewhere in this process so that you can start talking real numbers. A lot of this is can start getting into very sensitive information, especially if you're in in any sort of a compliance niche, or if you're in cybersecurity, anything like that. You're likely going to have an NDA process as well here, somewhere along the line in the sales discussion. This consulting call, generally, I like to do 1 to 3 or maybe 4 calls, depending on contract value, on contract size. But let's say if you're dealing with a contract value of 50, 100,000 or less, this can generally be done in just a few calls before you say not now. Let's not waste each other's time. After the sales call, then we move into an audit. Sometimes it's helpful to have an audit where you can look behind the scenes. This helps you get an agreement in place that's much smaller, much easier. Yes. So I'll walk you through in the next slide how that looks. The fourth step, after the audit's done, then you have more of a full proposal, a proper proposal outlining solutions, pricing, timeline, so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you've gotten to that and that you have really clear understanding of all of your pain points that your client is dealing with. After the proposal, obviously there's always a negotiation phase. You're going to be handling objections. A lot of times it's going to boil down to trust if you're newer, or it's going to boil down to some level of budget. But you want to always be qualifying those objections to really understand and understand if they're giving you smoke screens or if it's a true true objection. After that all goes well, then you move to close, and we all love that. So I'm going to swap my screen here into a presentation that one of our setter team here could not be here today. She's on vacation, but she put together a nice presentation for what she does as part of AceMakers for the setter call, so you can understand how to frame that correctly. So bear with me as I swap my screen one moment.
Yeah, and then as Jake is just switching to that setter call presentation, just to give you a breakdown and like example of what those calls look like, I just want to emphasize how much more of a consulting approach is applied to those enterprise sales comparing to anything else. How much more of sitting of the same side of the table and being their advisor is applicable to the process rather than selling. And a lot of guys, especially in IT, and a lot of people who we work with, they say, hey, I don't want to sell. And the great thing about it is what we've seen in IT consulting is, well, you don't have to, because they don't want you to be that salesy, tacky, car dealership person. It is not that. It is more so of advising and just trying to figure that solution with them. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, that's a really key point. You are a trusted advisor to them. You are always finding solutions. You are sitting on the same table as them, on the same side of the table as them. Cannot overstate that enough. Sales is really it's really about a service. It's really I believe it is a very sacred interaction. You are helping people solve their problems, and it's very, very, very important to be in integrity in that, as to the very best of your ability. In that process, have that mindset and framework going into it. People can read that subconsciously immediately, so it's very important to have that mindset going in and to believe it. As far as the setter call goes here, first you want to really frame the call. A setter, these calls they're just your qualifying call. 15, 20 minutes. Half an hour is almost too long. You just want to get some initial rapport built. It's going to be with a different person, hopefully than the person who's going to be doing the full sales conversation. The reason for that is psychology. The more steps you have in your process, the larger your organization comes across. You don't want to. There's a book. It's written by Oren Clash. It's called Flip the Script. It speaks a lot to this. If you're going to be working with enterprise, they have, if you have multiple gatekeepers to get to anyone in the C-suite. So you have to reflect that in your sales process, or you're going to be seen as less value. People do not buy from somebody with less value. They don't. That is a charity in their mind. Just so be very mindful of the psychology of this. So it's very important to train your setter team on framing those calls initially. So framing it means basically introduction. What can you expect from the call? What are the next steps that you can expect? If this looks like a conversation that is worthwhile to continue having. The whole goal of this is just not be wasting time. It's okay to tell people no, it's not a good fit. Ideally, you do that in a 15-minute call rather than spending hours with them and then realizing it's not a good fit. So that's the goal here is to both filter and qualify at the same time, and also build up the next person in the process. Introduction is quite simple. You just go through a little bit what to expect. A little bit of rapport building, tribe alignment, expectations of the call. This is going to be a 20 minute call. Keep it super low pressure, and then describe the next steps. When you're qualifying the lead, you're going to be asking questions around the budget, around how important is this? What are the main challenges? You're really trying to understand why are they on this call with you? A lot of times you have to ask that a few times in a few different ways, and that is just very, very valuable information to have for the next person down the line, so they know how to frame the conversation in the next call, which is going to be a lot longer. In the qualifying the lead, it's very important to get an understanding of where is this person? Are they a spark buyer? Are they a decision influencer? Are they a decision maker? You want to understand where they are in the matrix of the organization, so that if whether to prompt them to bring anybody else onto the call who is actually a decision maker, because the more that you can have the full committee there on those longer sales conversations, the better, so that you can actually move into an actual negotiation. The third part of the call here is hyping up the closer or the biz dev, senior biz dev person in your company. Basically build them up as an expert, build them up the value they're going to get from this call. You don't need to do it in a crazy way, but it's just facts, when you've helped scale companies from 15 to 50 million. These are facts. These are facts that you've done, and it helps establish that authority for the next person down the road, and that way that the next person, the closer, doesn't have to do that themselves so much. If in psychology, if someone else is talking us up, that's received a lot better than if we talk ourselves up. So, and then the final piece here is just to prevent any drop-offs from happening. It's always, a teacher, a professor, someone in authority, a doctor. A lot of times, they'll give a homework. They'll say, you need to do this. Your heart's not working well. You need to take this medication to get things fixed. That we see that as authority. So if you can give them some homework, some collateral, something to review before the call, by the end of the call, that really helps actually with show up rates on the closer call. This is something to have some key considerations. Standardized process. In order to have a successful setter call, you want to understand how to handle at least minor objections on a set call. You don't have to handle the major ones. You can put some of them off onto the senior biz dev person. You need to have a good understanding of how the lead funnels work, what the standardized process is, mindset going into the call, how to handle at least the minor objections, so training your setters on how to do that. And then the other key piece of this is Matt and I were just on a call earlier today, and this current prospect of ours just could not talk well enough of how our set team and follows up on the call reminders. Cannot tell you how important that is to have as part of your process. The follow-ups will bring you a lot of revenue that you're leaving on the table. So I think that's the end of this little presentation. I'll move back to my main one.
Yeah, and then should we jump into systems, Jake, or is there? Okay, cool. So the next step is the systems. So we have Fabian here, formerly from Google. He takes care of building systems, measuring everything. Nothing really matters if it's not measured. We always put so much emphasis on this, and really Fabian is the person behind making sure that everything is logged in. So he will talk a bit about the importance of measuring those activities, because otherwise, how do you know if it's 88 touch points or 5 touch points or what exactly that you're doing is yielding any kind of ROI on your actions?
Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. I hope you can see my slides. Is that correct? Perfect.
Yeah, we can see
as
it.
Matt already said, all the activities that we've been talking today about, they are useless if you don't have a proper system set up, meaning you're gonna report every single step. You follow certain sequence. You make sure that these sequences or these activities, they run in the backend, in your backend, without even thinking about it, because it needs to run every day, day in and day out, in order to build sustainable activities that run every week, every month, every year, to in the end make your business more independent from yourself. Now we call this a system, and what a system technically is, it is a set of connected elements that interact with each other to function as a whole. And although I cannot brag with big names of my references, as Matt did in the beginning with McKinsey and Gartner, my source in today's age hopefully is also credible enough. I use the Microsoft Copilot, but I still think that this description fits quite well what a system is. Now let me illustrate this in my own way. You see 5 dots here, but if you put pressure on top, the system collects like this lady collapsed under the weight, although she can control it quite well. The difference is if you connect all these elements and you then put pressure on top, you have you suddenly break a world record in lifting weights. Now, obviously, this is just a little visualization, but I hope it gives you a better understanding how relevant this just the connection of each individual element is in the end. Now, translating that into the business context, obviously we already talked a lot about tracking. Eric talked a lot about tracking. Again, if you do those steps that Eric talked about without tracking, how do you know whether you're on the right path, whether your metrics look well, whether your process works in terms of outcome? How do you know which part of the process works? Like oftentimes, even though the end result is not there yet, parts of the process are working quite well. And if you don't track properly, there's no way in figuring that out. You would throw away the entire process, although parts of the process will work well. So yeah, these are just two examples: sales KPI tracking, lead generation tracking. But what we also do is we create typically a standard operating procedures document, like a huge handbook in which we collect every single process step. So for all the activities we've been talking about today, there is a process step behind added to our process handbook. So everybody can, whenever they have questions, they can look into it, they can read through it and know exactly what to do. It helps us structure these systems, and it also helps us keeping the quality within these processes as well. So we make sure no matter who is performing these processes, the quality stays the same. And it also allows you to repeat those processes day in and out. Why is it so important? Number one, no distractions and less doubt. Now, when you start working on your business development, there's a lot of doubts. There's a lot of questions throughout the process because you never know, is LinkedIn the right process or is it cold email? Okay, you start with LinkedIn. Is it message 1 or is message B? Is it buying target group 1 or target group B or target group 2? There's so many questions. Like you get an answer from one of the leads. Do I respond with response A or with response B? There's so many questions, and you doubt your process all the time. Now, when you have a system set up and you can actually track the numbers, you remove the doubts quite a bit because you simply look at the numbers and interpret the numbers that you have. Number two, you make better decisions. Obviously, building systems, tracking, metrics allows you or gives you transparency over the process. And as I just stated before, with the right transparency, you can then decide which part of any process might work and which might not before you throw away the entire process. So you can make much better decisions and also non-biased decisions, because in the end, it's not about your gut feeling, it is about the numbers in everything you do. And lastly, yeah, it makes it easier to evaluate the process, whether the process works well or not. And it's not about a gut feeling, it is about numbers. And if the numbers don't lie, if the numbers add up and the numbers are good, go ahead, duplicate what you do and build volume and like build up the entire system. If the numbers look bad, pivot, try something else, see what the numbers are. If the numbers look good, build volume, build up the system. So to sum it up, it is the backbone of your business. If the systems, the processes are not in place, the tracking is not in place, all these activities we've been talking about today are worth only half, and most likely will not bring you the results that you want to.
Thanks so much, Fabian. I'll just get into the discussion a little bit here. We want to have some space here for your questions, guys. Also, just to summarize what has been said so far, and also a small announcement for you guys in a second. But what Fabian said, systems are here at the bottom of everything. So none of this makes sense. None of that makes sense. Lead generation, sales, it really has to be properly measured, and positioning is on top of everything. And this is how you go about this. That's why those elements are so important. I do have a short announcement for you guys, and then we can get into discussion and questions. But we do have a few goodies for all of you who have stayed here all the time up until now. I think I have 4 things for you guys that we're going to be sharing with you completely for free today as an appreciation for your time here today with us. we will be sharing with you the following. So first of all, we want to give a free consultation with Jacob to see whether everything or how all those things and if they can apply to your company. You can book this consultation now. We open a few time slots in Jake's calendar. I'm dropping a link here. We have 2 time slots for Friday, and we have a few time slots for next week. So feel free to grab some of those spots before Christmas, and Jake and our team will talk to you, and I will show you how this can apply to your company in particular. So it's much more customized advice. Again, we have very consultancy-like approach, so we're looking to help you out there. The second thing we want to give you for participating today, for those who will have the consultation with Jake, we will also send you all the presentation slides, everything that we covered today. So you can just use it. You can use it with your team. You can just build it by yourself. We are also going to share with you the positioning tracking sheets. So be sharing this with you. As soon as you book a consultation with us, I'll be sending you an email as well. So you can just work on ICP, buyer persona, and so on with your team by yourself. You can, we will also be sharing the tracking sheets that Eric and Fabian were showing. So you can also track what works for you, what doesn't work. So you have the data-based approach. So all of this is free for you guys as an appreciation for staying here and joining us today. All you need to do is just book a consultation with Jake in the link that I just shared with you. I just see that we have only one more spot for Friday. We just got the second one booked and the third one booked right now. So I appreciate you guys. There's still one more for Friday and few for next week. So feel free to grab those spots, and then I'll be sharing all those free materials with you as well. Now, I want to get into your questions. Well, do have, some time here. We have about 8 more minutes. You can get perspective from all of us through the panel discussion on the questions that you have. So feel free to drop them right now, and we can go over all the topics that you have. So we do have a question from I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Taya or Taja? I'm so sorry about that. You can feel free to unmute yourself and correct me if I'm wrong. But okay, perfect. So the question is there some automation for collecting LinkedIn touchpoints, etc.? Except how? Yeah, so you could look into the tools like I was referring to before, like for example the hockey stack. Those are the tools that can collect those pieces of information. Most of those tools are a little bit pricey. They are, or you can look for hockey stack alternatives on Google as well. Most of them cost over $2,000 a month. So I have no idea which stage you are with your business, but what we recommend when you're starting out is to simplify the process a little bit. You don't need to over-engineer measuring every single touch point. You can limit this to a smaller amount of touch points that you can measure with the amount of messages you're sending. So we typically recommend whenever you're starting out using tracking sheets that we have that we will be looking to share with you as well after this call. So you can just do all of that for free. It's a little bit more manual starting in the beginning. But yeah, this is something that you could use. Also, what Fabian is sharing here, you could also use LinkedIn Helper, for example. So that's an automation tool that sends messages with LinkedIn. Eric, Fabian, feel free to unmute yourself. You guys work with those on a daily basis to add something, but I think those tools are measuring all of those interactions specifically on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, correct. I think it's more about a recommendation here. I'm not sure whether I understand the question correctly, but I think you're asking for an automation that connects LinkedIn communications directly to your CRM. And again, you can check out Zapier. You can set up a lot of automations with Zapier. But what I want to add here is that we do recommend to keep the LinkedIn communications in LinkedIn, track them in LinkedIn. You can build a system in Sales Navigator, and only once these leads convert into the setter call, meaning they enter the sales call, then we typically connect it to the CRM. You could easily build an automation that connects, for example, Calendly with Pipedrive or HubSpot, which basically adds everybody who books a call through Calendly to your sales pipeline in your CRM. Yeah, this is how we do it, and we try to keep the leads in each individual lead generation funnel until they enter the sales process.
Thanks so much, Fabian. We have 6 more minutes. Please feel to drop some of the last questions that you might have. Also, let us know if this answered your question or not. Answering your question, then, yes, we'll be sharing the recording after this call with everyone. We are also going to share all the tracking sheets or the slides. And also, we're giving away a free consultation with Jake for everyone joining this call. We have, I think, 4 more slots left. I think we have only 2 more slots left right now. Everything is booked already for this week, and then we're now booked out every single time slot for next week, except for 2 more time slots on Friday. So if you'd like to grab those, you have an option as well. And then we're also going to be giving you some goodies, all the tracking sheets and all the templates we're going over this call. And then, yes, the recording will be shared after the meeting. We'll be also posting this in the next few days. So, okay, we have 5 more minutes. So let's see. A question from Oleg. Can you share some success stories? Maybe Fabian, could you talk about example strategy of, let me think. I think the one client we were talking about last time with
Digital?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Could you maybe talk about this one? I think it's relevant.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we work with a company called Upside Digital. It is a software/consulting company. They do provide their own software, but they also consult their clients in that area. What we did with them is we started obviously with a proper positioning. Again, it's always the starting point to make sure to understand your target group, to make sure to understand the problems, and then to define your solution to that problem. Basically the problem solution fit that I talked about before. And based on that, we used a very straightforward LinkedIn sales approach, meaning we reached out to the target group in a very systematic way, similar to what Eric described before. Over time, generated those first touch points, the first set of calls in our calendar, which our client took over then in the sales process and converted into closed deals, into signed contracts. To give you some numbers, I think on average between, if I remember correctly, 5 to 7 set of calls per month. And this client closed 2 projects within 5 months of collaboration, worth $100,000 euros. And it took him 5 months. So that is one example where the direct LinkedIn approach worked quite well. But the other examples, as Matt showed on the very first slide, where we got into the door of major decision makers of large corporations. But yeah, this is the example that was referred to.
Thanks so much, Fabian, for answering. Like I also shared a lot of other case studies and examples there as well. We literally have 2 more minutes left. Let me see if there is any more questions, Fabian. Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question to Kasim. How can you, or want to react to the question of Kasim? How can you measure a brand progress and its improvement via a system? I don't want to answer that today, personally, but I want to ask a question back. One of our very close experts in our network, he's a brand consultant, and he's been formerly working for Apple EMEA. He was Apple EMEA CMO, and also working in Siemens, the huge German everything company, basically. In the management, and now runs a successful brand consultancy in Germany. would it be interesting to you, Kasim, and also to the group to invite him to a potential future call to talk about branding and how to set up your branding, what is important about setting up your branding? Would that be an important and relevant
Yeah,
content for you?
yep, absolutely. Would really love to have that session, maybe in the follow-up.
Okay. Matt, that might be interesting then to see whether Freddie can join us, and yeah, hopefully we can get him on board.
Yeah, and sorry for cutting you off because we're gonna need to wrap up, and I need to have some final words. But yes, we do work with our consulting partner, and also as a former client with the former CMO of Apple, EMEA Markham. So yeah, we will be organizing more of those workshops as well. We can pull him in. He's also working with some of our clients. As for last question for Ntaya, does the data show differences between different regions? Yes, we measured that. Eric is measuring everything like that. So we run different tests for different regions, and you can see exactly which ones are the most responsive. Actually, the data shows you much more with tracking sheets that we use, and happy to share them with you if you booked a call with us as well. We also measure, where the clients came from in terms of which LinkedIn account, the difference between accounts, what impacts that this one worked better than the other. Also, in the sales conversions, where most of the sales come from, which accounts, what regions, etc. But guys, we really have to wrap up right now. We are on top of the hour, so we need to finalize this for today. We are definitely going to be hosting more of those. We're going to send you invitations as well. Thank you so much for joining today. We really appreciate your time and joining from all around the world, from all the time zones, all around the globe. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great Christmas, and we hope to speak to you guys in the future. And thank you for kind words or comments. Have a great day, and see you for now.